Ambassador Taehyun stood on his platform in the grand atrium of the Galactic Senate. The large hall buzzed with voices from 1,000 different alien species. As the Lyran representative for over 30 years, he knew this place well. His eyes moved to the empty seat in the middle ring. Unlike all the other seats, no one sat in this one. It had only one word carved into it in the old language, Earth. "You still can't stop looking at it, can you?" Jaiwan said as she walked up beside him. As his cultural assistant, she knew his habits well. Taehyun sighed. 2,000 years of records, and no one has ever sat there. Not once. The Archives Committee thinks it's just a symbol, Jaiwan replied. A way to honor the founders of the Senate. But why keep it? Why put it in every new Senate chamber they've built over thousands of years? Before Jaiwan could answer, loud voices caught their attention. Across the chamber, Senator Juno from the normally quiet Proxima Coalition was arguing with some strangers. Jaiwan touched her head device. A ship we don't know is at the outer marker. They want to be recognized by the Senate. The Senate floor quickly filled with noise as the news spread. The ship came from the Orion Arm, a far part of space that few had explored. According to old stories, this was where Earth might be. "This is impossible," whispered Taehyun. "No one comes from that sector." Senior Senator Kyung, the oldest member of the governing council, called for order. The room gradually quieted. "We have visitors from the uncharted regions," Kyung announced, his voice showing no emotion. Their ship identifies as Terran Envoy. They request landing permission and Senate audience. Murmurs filled the chamber. The word Terran was one Taehyun had only seen in ancient texts, always connected to the mysterious Earth. "Put it to vote," someone called out. Senator Kyung shook his head. "The founding charter is clear. Any previously unknown species has the right to request recognition. We cannot deny them." Senator Juno stepped forward. "My coalition borders the Orion Arm. We should have been told of contact with species from that region." "There was no contact until now," replied Kyung. "Their approach was unexpected." "What does that mean?" asked Taehyun quietly. Jaiwan checked her device again. They just appeared at the marker. No slipspace signature, no warp trail. They were simply not there, and then they were. This news sent a chill through Taehyun. No known species could travel without leaving energy traces. The Senate voted to allow the ship to dock. As they waited, Taehyun moved closer to the empty Earth seat. The old metal had strange marks worn into it, as if from use, yet no one had ever sat there. "Ambassador, look at this," Jaiwan called to him. She pointed to her screen where the approaching ship was visible. It was sleek and simple, with no visible weapons or engines. It moved with impossible grace. "That design," Taehyun started, "matches the symbols on the Earth seat," Jaiwan finished. "I checked the archives." The main doors to the Senate opened. Everyone turned to look. 5 figures walked in, wearing simple gray suits that covered their bodies completely. Their faces were hidden behind dark visors. The leader stepped forward and removed his helmet. The room fell silent. The being looked remarkably ordinary: 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, hair on top of its head. It could have passed for several known species except for small differences. "I am Captain Jeho of Earth," the being said in perfect galactic standard. "We have come to claim our seat." The silence broke. Hundreds of voices shouted questions. Senator Kyung struck his staff on the floor 3 times. "Earth is a myth," he said when quiet returned. "A legend from the founding days." Captain Jeho smiled. "Yet you keep our seat. You honor the agreement even when you no longer remember why." He walked directly to the empty seat and placed his hand on it. The ancient metal began to glow with soft blue light. Symbols around the edge that no one had noticed before lit up one by one. "The seat recognizes Earth blood," Jeho said. "As was promised long ago." Taehyun felt a strange mix of wonder and fear. The mystery he had wondered about for decades was unfolding before him, But something in Captain Jeho's words suggested this was just the beginning. "Now," said Jeho, turning to face the silent Senate, "it's time you learned why our seat has remained empty for so long." The ship Harmonic Convergence moved through the darkness of space. Captain Mincio sat in her command chair, watching the viewscreen as a blue-green planet grew larger before them. The planet called Earth. "What do we know about this world?" she asked, her fingers tapping on the armrest. Lieutenant Hyunki looked up from his station. "Not much, Captain. The Senate records are strangely empty. Just the location and the name." The ship slowed as it entered the solar system. Earth's star shone brightly ahead, and several planets could be seen in orbit around it. "Begin scans," ordered Captain Mincio. The crew worked quietly at their stations as the ship approached Earth. The mood was tense. This mission had been quickly arranged after the shocking appearance of humans at the Galactic Senate. "Scans complete," reported Lieutenant Hyunki after several minutes. He frowned at his screen. "This is strange, Captain." "What is it?" "Their technology doesn't make sense. I see basic satellites and a small space station. Very primitive. But I'm also detecting energy patterns that shouldn't be possible with that level of technology." Captain Mincio stood and walked to his station. She studied the readings herself. "It's as if they're hiding their real technology," she said quietly. "Should we be concerned?" asked Security Chief Do-hyun, his hand moving to his weapon. "We're here on a diplomatic mission," reminded Ambassador Jae-hee. "The Senate wants answers, not conflict." Captain Mincio returned to her chair. "Open communications. Let's announce ourselves properly." Communications Officer Salmon pressed several buttons on her console. "Channel open, Captain. This is Captain Mincio of the Galactic Senate vessel Harmonic Convergence. We come in peace seeking diplomatic contact with Earth." They expected to wait. Most first contacts involved long delays as new species worked to understand the message and form a response. Instead, the answer came almost immediately. "Galactic Senate vessel Harmonic Convergence, this is Earth Central Command. Welcome to our system. We've been expecting you." The bridge crew exchanged surprised looks. "The message is in perfect galactic standard," said Salmon. "No translation errors at all." "They say they've been expecting us," said Ambassador Jae-hee. "How could they know we were coming?" Before anyone could answer, the communication continued. "We invite your diplomatic team to land at the following coordinates. Sending landing approval and approach path now." Numbers and navigation data appeared on Salmon's screen. "They're very organized for a species we supposedly just met," observed Security Chief Do-hyun. Captain Mincio stood. "Ambassador Jae-hee, prepare your team. Lieutenant Ji-hoo, ready the landing shuttle." 3 hours later, Ambassador Jae-hee led a small group down the ramp of their shuttle. They had landed in a large open area next to a gleaming white building. Mountains rose in the distance, and the air smelled fresh and clean. A group of humans waited for them. They looked surprisingly like several other species in the galaxy, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and faces with 2 eyes. They wore simple white clothes with no symbols or decorations. One human stepped forward. "Welcome to Earth. I am Counselor Yuna of the United Earth Council. We are honored by your visit." Ambassador Jae-hee bowed slightly. "The honor is ours. I must admit, we are surprised by your preparedness. Most first contacts are not so smooth." Counselor Yuna smiled. "This isn't first contact for us, Ambassador. We've been aware of the Galactic Senate for centuries." The diplomatic team tried to hide their shock. "That's impossible," said cultural specialist Jinho. "We had no records of Earth until your representatives appeared at the Senate." "Because we chose to remain hidden," said another human, stepping forward. "I am Counselor Dong-hyun. Please, come inside where we can talk more comfortably." They followed the humans into the building. Inside was a round room with a table and chairs. Through large windows, they could see the blue sky and green trees outside. Once they were seated, Ambassador Jae-hee spoke. Your appearance at the Senate has raised many questions. The empty seat marked Earth has been a mystery for thousands of years. Yes, said Counselor Yuna with a gentle smile. We've been observing the Senate for quite some time. We've maintained our distance for reasons of our own. Your seat, Jae-hee began, has remained empty by choice, Counselor Dong-yeon finished. But perhaps it's time we explained why. He touched something on the table, and a hologram appeared above them. It showed the galaxy, spinning slowly. Long ago, humans traveled among the stars, he said. We were there when the Senate was formed. But that's not possible, objected Jinho. The Senate is over 2,000 years old. Yes, agreed Counselor Yuna. And we chose to return home and isolate ourselves after a great conflict. A conflict so terrible that the Senate chose to erase most records of it. Ambassador Jae-hee felt a chill. What conflict? Counselor Dong-yeon's face grew serious. The one that almost destroyed all life in the galaxy. The one that showed us what humans can become when pushed to war. We left our seat empty, said Counselor Yuna, as a reminder of what was lost, and as a promise that we would return if we were ever needed again. She looked directly at Ambassador Jae-hee. And now, something is stirring at the edges of the galaxy. Something that has forced us to break our isolation. Deep in the lower levels of the Galactic Senate Station, Senator Seo-jun hunched over his workstation. Around him, stacks of old paper records and data crystals covered every surface. The archives section was cold and dusty, forgotten by most who worked above in the grand halls. For 20 years, Seo-jun had been studying these records, trying to piece together the early history of the Senate. No one had cared about his work before. Now his communication device wouldn't stop beeping. Senator, the council needs your report in 1 hour, said a voice message. Seo-jun rubbed his tired eyes. Minji, have you found anything new? Across the room, his young assistant looked up from her own pile of documents. I think so. Come look at this. Seo-jun walked over as Minji laid out several old papers on the table. These records don't make sense, he muttered. Look at these references to the Protectors and the Last War. They're fragmented, as if someone deliberately cut parts out. Minji nodded. And see how the dates jump around? Like someone removed whole sections of history. Seo-jun picked up one document with care. It was very old, the edges crumbling. This mentions Earth. It says the protectors of Earth stood against the darkness when all seemed lost. And look at this, Minji said, pointing to another paper. This security directive specifically prohibits mapping missions to Earth's sector. It's dated nearly 2,000 years ago. Why would they ban exploration of one specific area? Seo-jun wondered. To keep something hidden? Or to keep something contained? Minji suggested. Seo-jun's device beeped again. The humans have docked. The reception starts in 30 minutes. Later, in the Great Reception Hall, Seo-jun watched the human delegation with intense interest. They looked ordinary enough, bipedal with 2 arms and a head, similar to many species in the galaxy. But something about them seemed different. They moved strangely, he whispered to Minji. She nodded. Have you noticed? They never seem off balance, even though they just arrived in our artificial gravity. It was true. While other visitors to the station often stumbled or moved carefully until they adjusted to the station's gravity, the humans walked with perfect ease. Seo-jun moved closer to the group, trying to hear their conversations. The lead human, who had introduced himself as Ambassador Jae-ho, was speaking with several senators. Yes, Earth has been isolated for a long time, Jae-ho was saying. We felt it was better that way. But why? Asked a senator from the Proxima Coalition. The Senate welcomes all intelligent species. Ambassador Jae-ho smiled politely but didn't answer. Across the room, something caught Seo-jun's attention. The ancient Veltraxian delegate, Byongo, had just entered. The Veltraxians were one of the oldest species in the Senate, with lifespans of over 500 years. Byongo himself was rumored to be nearly 400. The old Veltraxian saw the humans and stopped suddenly. The ceremonial cup in his clawed hand fell to the floor with a loud clang. His normally green scales turned pale gray. "Impossible," Byongo whispered loud enough for those nearby to hear. "They cannot be here." The humans turned at the noise. When Ambassador Jeho saw Byongo, his friendly expression changed. For just a moment, Seo-jun saw something hard and cold in the human's eyes. Then Jeho smiled again and walked toward the Veltraxian. "Elder Byongo, it has been a long time." The room grew quiet. How did the human know the Veltraxian's name? And what did he mean by a long time? Byongo's hands trembled. You cannot be the same. It was 300 years ago. "We have long lives," Jeho said simply. "But the agreement." Byongo started. "Circumstances have changed," interrupted another human, a woman who had been introduced as security advisor SUA. "We would not have returned otherwise." Seo-jun moved closer, trying to hear more of this strange conversation. Byongo seemed both afraid and angry. "The Senate does not remember," the Veltraxian hissed quietly. "We made sure they would not remember. That was our agreement." "Yes," agreed Jeho. "But something is coming, Elder Byongo. Something that does not care about our agreements." Before Byongo could respond, the Senate President called for attention. The formal welcome ceremony was beginning. Seo-jun grabbed Minji's arm. "I need to speak with Byongo immediately after this ceremony." "What's happening?" she asked, confused by the tension in the room. "I don't know," said Seo-jun. "But I think the Veltraxians know who these humans really are." Later, as the reception ended, Seo-jun followed Byongo down a quiet hallway. The old Veltraxian moved quickly, looking around as if afraid of being followed. "Elder Byongo," called Seo-jun. "Please, I must speak with you." The Veltraxian turned, his scales still an unhealthy gray color. "Leave me alone, historian. Some things are better left forgotten. You know them, don't you? You know what Earth really is." Byongo's eyes narrowed. "You have no idea what you're asking about." The Senate decided long ago to erase those memories. "Erase what?" pressed Seo-jun. "Who are they?" The Veltraxian looked around once more, then leaned close. "They are the reason we are all still alive. And they are the reason many are not." He gripped Seo-jun's arm with surprising strength. "If they have returned, then something terrible is coming." With that, Byongo hurried away, leaving Seo-jun standing alone in the corridor, his mind racing with new questions. Back in the archives, Minji had found something new. "Senator, look at this. I found it hidden inside another document." She handed him a small, ancient data crystal. When Seo-jun plugged it into his reader, a single image appeared, a group of beings standing together. Most were species he recognized as Senate founders. And standing among them were humans. The grand chamber of the Galactic Senate was packed tighter than it had been in centuries. Delegates from over 1,000 worlds squeezed into the round room. Many stood in the aisles or watched from screens in overflow rooms. Everyone wanted to see the formal introduction of Earth to the Senate. Ambassador Jinwoo walked calmly at the front of the human delegation. 6 other humans followed him in a neat line. They wore simple blue uniforms with a single symbol over their hearts, a circle with a dot in the center. Senator Seo-jun sat near the front, his notes spread on his lap. He had barely slept since his discovery in the archives. The image of humans standing with the Senate founders had raised too many questions. "They act like they've been here before," whispered Minji beside him. She was right. The humans didn't look around in wonder like most newcomers to the Senate. They walked with the confidence of people returning to a familiar place. At the center of the chamber stood Senate Protocol Officer Yunha. The slender purple-skinned Altarian held the ancient Staff of Recognition, a ceremonial object used only for the rarest of Senate functions. "Today we witness a historic moment," Yunha began, her voice amplified through the chamber. "The formal recognition of Earth and its people, and they're taking of the seat that has waited empty for 2,000 cycles of the galaxy. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Seo Jun noticed Elder Senator Wu Jin watching from his special platform. The ancient being belonged to one of the founding races of the Senate. His face was unreadable, but his 4 eyes never left the humans. Ambassador Jinwoo stepped forward to accept the ritual greeting. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared through the chamber. Red lights flashed on the walls. "Security breach," called a voice over the speaker system. From side doors around the chamber, armed figures rushed in. They wore black armor and masks that hid their faces. Each carried energy weapons that glowed with deadly power. "The Nexus Brotherhood," gasped Minji. But how did they get past security? The Nexus Brotherhood was a radical group that opposed Senate expansion. They believed the Senate should remain small and elite, not welcome new species. "Down!" shouted Ambassador Jinwoo, his voice cutting through the panic. What happened next seemed impossible. Jinwoo moved with blinding speed, pushing several delegates to the floor just as energy blasts hit the wall where they had been standing. The other humans reacted just as quickly, each moving to protect delegates rather than themselves. One of the Brotherhood fighters aimed at the Altarian protocol officer. A human woman, Seo Jun recognized her as security advisor SUA, appeared in front of Yunha faster than seemed possible. She caught the energy blast with some kind of shield that materialized from her wrist device. Ambassador Jinwoo himself moved through the chamber like water, flowing between attackers with unnatural grace. He disarmed 3 armed militants without apparent effort, his hands moving so fast they were almost a blur. Another human leaped 15 feet straight up, something that should have been impossible in normal gravity, and landed behind 2 attackers, disabling them with quick touches to their necks. Across the chamber, similar scenes played out. The humans moved as if the rules of physics didn't fully apply to them. They never killed, only disabled. Within minutes, all 20 Brotherhood fighters lay unconscious on the floor, and not a single delegate had been injured. In the shocked silence that followed, Ambassador Jinwoo straightened his slightly rumpled uniform and calmly returned to his position before the protocol officer. "We apologize for the interruption," he said, as if nothing unusual had happened. The chamber remained silent. Delegates stared with wide eyes or extra sets of eyes or sensory organs. What they had just witnessed defied explanation. Then Elder Senator Wu Jin stood. The ancient being moved slowly to the center of the chamber, his ceremonial robes dragging on the floor. He stopped beside Ambassador Jinwoo and looked out at the gathered representatives. "Now you understand," he said, his deep voice carrying across the silent chamber. "Earth was never just another world. They were the protectors, the shield that stood against the darkness when the rest of us could not." Wu Jin turned to face Jinwoo. "I am old enough to remember, human. I was young when the agreement was made. We would erase the records, and you would withdraw to your world." "Yes," said Jinwoo simply. "That was the agreement." "But why?" asked Senator Taehyun, standing from his seat. "Why hide the truth?" Elder Wu Jin's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "Because the galaxy feared them as much as they needed them." "We are weapons," said Ambassador Jinwoo, his voice calm but sad. "We were made to be weapons in a war most of you have forgotten." "The last war," breathed Seo Jun, remembering the fragments he had found in the archives. "Yes," confirmed Wu Jin. "A war against an enemy from beyond the galaxy. An enemy that consumed worlds and minds." "We stopped them," said Jinwoo. "But the cost was high. And when it was done, many species feared what we had become to win that war. So we agreed to leave," said Security Advisor SUA. "To return to Earth and stay there. To give the galaxy time to heal and forget." "But now you have returned," said Wu Jin. "Which means?" Ambassador Jinwoo nodded gravely. "Yes, Elder. They are coming back. And this time, they are coming in much greater numbers." 3 days after the attack, the Senate gathered again. The mood was different now. No one talked or joked before the session. Everyone sat quietly, waiting. In the center of the chamber, a large screen had been set up. Next to it stood Senator Seo Jun with several data crystals in his hands. By order of Elder Woojin, the sealed archives have been opened, Seo Jun announced. His voice shook slightly. What you are about to see has been hidden for 2,000 years. He inserted the first crystal into the reader. The screen lit up with ancient images. They showed strange ships entering the galaxy. The ships looked like giant dark clouds with metal parts sticking out. The Void Eaters, said Elder Woojin from his special seat. They came from the darkness between galaxies. They did not want to trade or talk. They wanted only to consume. The images changed to show planets being covered by black clouds. Then the clouds would leave, and the planets would be empty of all life. Many delegates turned away. Some cried out in horror. They destroyed 17 worlds before the Senate could even respond, continued Woojin. No weapon we had could stop them. The next images showed a blue-green planet Earth. Ships left its surface, heading into space. Humans were a young species then, said Ambassador Jinwoo, standing beside the screen. We had just developed space travel. We knew nothing of the wider galaxy. But we knew how to fight. The screen showed human ships meeting the dark cloud vessels. Though much smaller, the human ships moved with incredible speed. They seemed to know where the cloud ships would be before they arrived. How? Asked Senator Taehyun. How could your ships predict their movements? We couldn't, replied Jinwoo simply. But we could react faster than they could. Human minds process danger differently than most species. Our bodies can respond to threats more quickly than our conscious minds even understand them. The next images showed humans in strange suits fighting on the ground. They moved like the human delegates had during the attack, too fast, too strong to be normal. When the war turned desperate, said Jinwoo, our ancestors agreed to be changed. Our bodies were made stronger. Our minds faster. We became living weapons. The final images showed the defeated cloud ships retreating beyond the edge of the galaxy. Then humans standing with the early Senate leaders, signing some kind of agreement. When the war ended, Ambassador Jinwoo explained, our ancestors made a choice. We had become too efficient at warfare, too shaped by conflict. We withdrew to our homeworld, asking only that our seat remain empty but waiting. Elder Woojin nodded. The empty seat was both memorial and promise. Earth would return if they were ever needed again. As the screen went dark, the Senate chamber filled with voices. Some delegates shouted in support of the humans. Others yelled warnings about the danger of having such beings in the Senate. They are weapons. Can we trust them? Called one senator. They saved us once. We need them now, argued another. Seo Jun watched the chaos with a heavy heart. The truth had been hidden so long, and now it was tearing the Senate apart. Ambassador Jinwoo stepped forward and raised his hand. Slowly, the room quieted. We understand your fears, he said. 2,000 years ago, your ancestors feared us too. That is why we left. He walked to the empty seat that had waited so long for Earth. He placed his hand on it but did not sit. We do not seek to reclaim past glories or authority. But the threats that once required our intervention are stirring again at the galaxy's edge. Our long-range sensors have detected Void Eater ships. Small ones, scouts. But where scouts go, the swarm follows. A worried murmur passed through the crowd. We offer a compromise, continued Jinwoo. Earth's seat will remain empty during peace, filled only when the Senate faces existential threat. Elder Woojin stood, his ancient body moving with effort. I propose we vote on Ambassador Jinwoo's offer. The voting took an hour. Each senator had to speak their choice aloud, as was tradition for the most important decisions. As the last vote was counted, Taehyun sat beside Jiwon, watching with wonder. The Senate accepts Earth's terms, announced Elder Woojin. By a margin of 7 votes. Ambassador Jinwoo bowed deeply to the Senate. Then, for the first time in 2,000 years, a human sat in Earth's seat. The circle is complete, whispered Jiwon. The Guardians have returned. Let us hope they are as good as the stories say, replied Taehyun. Because if those images were true, we will need them soon. That night, as the Senate station orbited the central star, new ships arrived. They were sleek and powerful, marked with Earth's symbol. They took up defensive positions around the station. For the first time in centuries, the station's long-range scanners looked outward, toward the dark space between galaxies. Watching. Waiting. And in that darkness, something was moving toward them.